There's an old saying, a phrase that is used. I'm sure you've heard it, maybe even said it yourself. That phrase is this: take 5. It means to stop for a moment to catch your breath and regroup before getting back into the action. That's what I'm asking you to do right now. Stop what you're doing and take 5 minutes to let the Word of God breathe new life into you, and allow the Spirit of God to grant you your second wind, to not only face the journey ahead of you, but to finish strong. The clock is already ticking, so let's get started.
English professors tell us to beware of commonly misspelled words and grammar errors. Law enforcement tell us to beware of certain criminal activities. The meteorologist tells us to beware of certain weather conditions on the horizon. But when Jesus tells us to beware of something, we need to beware. And in the Gospels, he does just that. Several times, he specifically tells his disciples, beware of something. And that's what I'd like to talk to you about. First, in Matthew chapter 7, Jesus says, beware of false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. He says you would know them by their fruits. He said, a good tree brings forth good fruit, and an evil tree brings forth evil fruit. Not everybody that says, thus saith the Lord, or quotes a few Bible verses are telling us the truth. We need to beware of deception, and the best way we can counter that is to know the Bible ourselves. Jesus said you would know the truth, and the truth would make you free. In Matthew chapter 10, Jesus said, beware of men. He told his disciples they would deliver them up to the council, they would scourge them in the synagogues, they would deliver them up to kings and to governors. They would betray them. Men would betray them. They would let them down. And he says, beware of betrayal. He tells us that we're to love everyone, including our enemies, but trust is earned. Jeremiah in 17, verse 9, he says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? So if we can't even know our own heart, then truly we can't know the heart of others. That's why the psalmist in Psalm 118:8 says, it's better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in men. In Matthew chapter 16, Jesus told his disciples, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Because leaven was used to cause bread to rise, the disciples thought he was talking about bread, and he had to remind them of feeding the 5,000 with the 5 loaves and few fishes, and the 4,000 with the 7 loaves and the few fishes. And then they understood that he didn't talk about bread, but he was talking about their doctrine. In Luke chapter 12, he says their hypocrisy. You see, they said one thing and done another. They didn't practice what they preached. You could hear their words, but it wasn't working in their lives. And so he says, beware of hypocrisy, whether it's with our peers or preachers or politicians. Which brings us to the next thing. In Mark chapter 8, Jesus said, beware of the leaven of Herod. Herod was the king. Politics. Beware of politics. Politics has polluted and poisoned almost every aspect of modern society, including the church. And Jesus said, beware. In Mark chapter 12, Jesus said, beware of the scribes. He says, because they love to wear clothes to be noticed. They like to be greeted in the marketplaces. They love the best seats in the house. They pray long prayers just so that they could be heard. These men love positions and promotions more than they do people. They love approval and applause. And Jesus said to beware of such motivations, whether it be in our lives or in the lives of other people. The fear of man is a snare, Proverbs tells us. And Jesus says, take heed when all men speak well of you. And the idea is, if everybody's pleased with everything that you're doing, it's a good chance, a good sign that the Lord himself is not pleased with what you're doing. So he says, beware. And in Luke chapter 12, Jesus said, beware of covetousness. For a man's life doesn't consist in the abundance of the things which he possesses. Then he told a parable of a man who had a bumper crop. He didn't know what to do with all of it. So he said, hey, I'll tear down my barns, I'll build new barns so I can store it all up, and I'll say to myself, soul, take thine ease. You've got many things laid up for many years. Eat, drink, and be merry. And the Lord said, this night your soul will be required of you. And then whose shall all these things be? He said, so shall it be to him that layeth up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. Guys, we love gear and gadgets. And it's okay to have things. It's just not okay when those things have us. We need to remember those things are just tools. They're not treasures. And remember this man that Jesus talked about who laid up treasure for himself, but he wasn't rich toward God. Because Jesus is where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. In Colossians chapter 3, verse 5, Paul says that covetousness is idolatry. We need to learn, like Paul in Philippians 4:11, to be content in whatever state that we're in. Well, these are things that we need to avoid. There's safety in avoiding these things. And so I just encourage you to take heed, take care, and beware.
Hey guys, be sure to click like and subscribe if this video helped you. And most importantly, share it with someone you think would benefit from a spiritual breather themselves. God bless you. I'll catch you on our next break.